Hi, this is John from Denarii Games. We're doing a devlog today, and we added a feature to the world that I wanted to share and kind of document how we did it. Um, in this case, what we're doing here is wrapping the world. And what I mean by that is you should be able to run a direction, east-west, west-east, and circumnavigate the globe. So what it looks like is something like this. We have a terrain, and whether you come from the east side to the west side, that's going to match up. And what we started with was just a very simple texture that we created in GIMP to do a height map that allowed us to have a gradual rise from the ocean floor up to a landmass. And in this case, we're using Polaris for the terrain generation. And then we just started adding in details, but we were very careful not to touch the very edges of that original height map. And that's how we're able to get them to line up. So the next problem was, how are we going to be able to get that teleport to work? Was writing some custom script to do that. Here I've got a sample scene to demonstrate it. And it works with basically a collider. So you're looking at the east collider here, and there's of course a corresponding west collider. In our world, we don't have a north and a south, but because you can't run north and south, you run into an ocean. But the same principle applies. And then when you enter this collider with a player enter, we're going to perform an action. What we found was that there was already a character teleport action, which is expecting a destination. But we're going to try to solve that problem with some math to figure out and keep the same relative position just on the opposite side of the world. Teleport itself is just a convenience wrapper in character locomotion. You can see it's basically just a transform position. But there, in the case of this Navish agent, there's a bit more to it. So we're going to continue to use the teleport convenience wrapper for the transform position on the character. So the first thing we had to do was create a brand new action, which of course we were going to share with all Patron subscribers. And we're going to get the current position of the player. From there, we can try to determine from the box collider that this action is attached to the dimensions. Are we looking at east-west or north-south? If it's east-west, then what we want to be able to do is do some math to figure out what the new x will be, right? Because z will stay the same, but x will change if I'm running east to west. And so there's some pretty simple math here to figure out if I'm running east or if I'm running west. And that's the first part here. And then we're just going to put you on the other side, depending on which direction you're running. The reason for the origin here, we've got origin lower left, origin center. In my case with the terrain, the 0, 0 is at the lower left part of the continent. But sometimes you have a center position where 0, 0 is dead center. So the math is a little bit different. So instead we'll be putting you at 0 effectively. Instead we're going to put you at the negative of the current position. North-south is exactly the same, except for now instead of calculating a new x, we're calculating a new z. But it's exact same logic. We did find that despite our best efforts, we were not able to get the y to always consistently match. And so to make sure that a character didn't fall through the earth, we're going to raycast to figure out what the y is on the opposite side. And the last little bit is to stop camera warping. So what we do here is we're going to disable some of this camera smooth setting. First we store what you currently have as a setting. We're going to set it to 0, then do our teleport, and then reset it back to the way it was. And that will make the change instantaneous. And so if we look at it here inside of my test, it'll be exactly the same. So if we're going to run away from the red and towards the yellow, warp me right back around. Of course I can go the other direction, right? I can go north-south, and that's those triggers in operation. If we look at the triggers, we can see we've got the world origin. In this case, it's 0, 0 because I put the plane dead center, right? in my actual game. It's, as I said, the origins at the lower left corner. Then we have the character, the player, and then the collider. So we're just going to drag the same collider over and use that collider for the dimensions and the orientation, that sort of thing. I did some experimentation as well with cameras. I'm not entirely crazy about it, but let me show you what that looks like while I'm here. So in this case, I've got some cameras that are projecting the opposite side of the plane, and then I basically put that on top of a render texture. So we can actually see what's on the other side, but everything's pretty flat, of course, the way I've got that projected out. Not sure I'm going to use that in the game, but I thought I'd show that as well. And the way those cameras work is pretty simple. You have a camera pointing towards the opposite side, and that then gets put onto a render texture. The render texture is then put onto the canvas on the opposite side, so east is pointing this way, and then we put an east here, west is pointing this way, and we put that on west here, and we just apply the material to the plane. A little bit of fiddling and whatnot, you can kind of get this perspective look. So that's it for the devlog. As I said earlier, I'll be sharing the action with Patreon subscribers. Have a good one.